Auschwitz, 1940. Most men would do anything to stay away from that place. Witold Pilecki did the opposite. He walked in on purpose. He was not captured by accident. He did not fall into a trap. He was not sent there without knowing what it was. He volunteered to be arrested. He asked to be taken inside Auschwitz. He wanted to find out what was happening in there and organize resistance from within. What he found was worse than any report could contain. And when he finally escaped, the world heard what he had to say and did not do enough. Witold Pilecki was born in 1901 in a Polish family built around one idea: duty. Not duty as a word, but duty as a way of living. He grew up believing that a man's worth was measured by what he was willing to sacrifice, not what he was able to keep. He fought in the defense of Poland in 1939, when the Germans invaded from the west and the Soviets from the east. Poland fell in weeks. But Pilecki did not stop fighting. He went underground, joined the resistance, and kept organizing. By 1940, the Germans were conducting mass roundups in Warsaw. Civilians were being dragged off the streets, sent east, and disappearing. Witold Pilecki and the resistance knew something was happening in those camps, but they did not know exactly what. So Pilecki proposed something that no one in the room wanted to hear. He would let himself be caught. He would walk into a German roundup on purpose, get arrested, get deported, and go inside whatever was waiting at the other end. He wanted to build a resistance network from inside the camp. He wanted to send reports back out. He wanted the world to know what was really happening. The resistance approved the mission. And on the 19th of September 1940, Witold Pilecki walked into a German street roundup in Warsaw on purpose. Most stories about Auschwitz begin with a man trying to survive. This one begins with a man who chose to go in. He was not a victim of circumstance. He was not caught off guard. He was not unlucky. He calculated the risk and decided someone had to know. When Pilecki arrived at Auschwitz, he was given a number, 4859. That was his name now. He saw what the camp really was within days. Not a prison, not a labor facility. A machine built to destroy people slowly, systematically, and without hesitation. Starvation, beatings, executions, men dying on the ground and no one stopping to look. But Pilecki was not just surviving. He was watching, counting, and memorizing. Within weeks, he began building a clandestine resistance network inside the camp. Small cells, trusted men, quiet communication. He collected names. He documented patterns. He mapped the structure of the killing operation. And then, piece by piece, he began smuggling reports out, through civilians working near the camp, through the camp's underground channels, through contacts in the Polish resistance outside. His reports described what was happening inside Auschwitz in precise, devastating detail. Mass executions, systematic starvation, selections, gas chambers. This was not a prison camp. This was the organized murder of an entire people. He did not enter Auschwitz because he was trapped. He entered because he understood that someone had to know. The decision was not heroic in the moment. It was colder than that. He chose to go where others could not survive, because from the outside, the world would never believe what was happening inside. Pilecki's reports reached the Polish government in exile in London. They were forwarded to British intelligence, to Allied commanders, to anyone who would read them. The reports were accurate, detailed, and verifiable, and the response was almost nothing. Some officials found the reports difficult to believe. Others believed them and decided that bombing the camps would be too complicated, too costly, too far from the main objectives. The machinery kept running. The world received the warning too early to claim it did not know, and too late to act the way it should have. This is not a story of a man who failed to warn the world. This is the story of a world that received the warning and looked the other way. There are stories like this, people who walked into places no one else could survive and came back with the truth. Subscribe to WW2 Chronicles so you do not miss the next one. By 1943, Pilecki had been inside Auschwitz for nearly 3 years. He had built a resistance network. He had sent multiple reports. He had done what he came to do. And now he understood something else. If he stayed, he would die there, and everything he had documented would die with him. On the night of April 26, 1943, Pilecki and two companions escaped from Auschwitz. They slipped through the perimeter in darkness. They ran, they hid, they survived. He was out. After 2 years, 7 months and 9 days inside the worst place in occupied Europe, he was out. But the story was not over. The worst part was still coming. After escaping Auschwitz, Pilecki continued fighting. He fought in the Warsaw Uprising in 1944. He was captured by the Germans. He survived a prisoner of war camp. When the war ended, Pilecki returned to Poland, not to rest, to keep working. But Poland was no longer the country he had fought for. The Soviets had installed a communist government, and the new regime did not want men like Pilecki around. Men who had fought for the old Poland. Men who knew too much. Men people respected. In 1947, Witold Pilecki was arrested by the communist security services. He was tortured. He was put on trial. He was accused of espionage. On May 25, 1948, the man who had voluntarily entered Auschwitz, who had organized resistance from inside the worst camp in Europe, who had escaped and told the truth, was executed by the Polish communist government. A bullet in the back of the head, in secret. For decades after his death, Pilecki's name was suppressed. The communist regime erased him from official history. His family was forbidden from speaking about him. His records were buried. His mission was classified. The man who had done more than almost anyone to document the Holocaust died in obscurity, labeled a traitor by the government that replaced the Nazis. It was only after the fall of communism in Poland in the 1990s that his name began to be restored. Today, he is recognized as one of the greatest heroes in Polish history, but for most of the world, his name is still unknown. The most terrifying part of Pilecki's story is not that he entered Auschwitz willingly. It is that he came back with the truth, and the world still could not move fast enough to match the scale of what he had seen. Witold Pilecki entered Auschwitz on purpose. He reported the truth from inside. He escaped, he fought in the uprising, he survived the war, and then he was shot in the back of the head by the regime that replaced the Nazis. He did what few men in history would even imagine, and still died in obscurity. That is what makes his story impossible to forget.